Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth.
Well, Earl, good morning.
Morning, Alan. Good to be with you.
Well, good to be with you, and I can see the gleam in your eye because we are at the Mitchell Center on the University of South Alabama campus, and we are in the head basketball coach's office about to do a little podcast. So you're fired up, aren't you?
I am so fired up. I'm just hoping that Coach Riley doesn't make me run laps.
Well, if you behave, maybe you won't. So, Coach Riley, thank you for taking time out of what I know is a busy schedule to talk to us for a few minutes. We appreciate that. Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about who you are, what your background is, what you do today?
Yeah, it's great to be on with you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to come up here and give me a chance to talk to you guys. Obviously, I'm Richie Riley, the head coach here at South Alabama men's basketball. Basketball's taken me on an unbelievable journey. I'm truly blessed to be able to do the things I've done so far. This is my second season here. We're getting ready to begin season 2. Year 1 was a success. We won more games than they'd won in, I think, 6 or 7 years, which was great. But my background, I'm from London, Kentucky originally. Grew up an only child, country boy from a southeastern Kentucky town. And all my family still lives there for the most part. And I grew up, I always wanted to coach basketball. That's been my dream. A lot of people dream of playing in the NBA one day and doing all that. And I was a good high school player and went and walked on to Eastern Kentucky and got my degree from there. But I always wanted to coach. I asked for a dry erase board when I was 8 years old. So it's really rare. It's just always been my passion to coach. And to get my start, it was tough. My dad's an electrician, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I didn't come from a basketball family necessarily. A lot of coaches their dads are coaches or family members. For me, I had to find a way to get my own start, and I volunteered at Georgetown College, which is an NAIA school in Kentucky. Did that for a couple years. Drove 40 minutes one way, 40 minutes back every day on my own dime to get an opportunity. And then my first job came in at Hawaii Pacific. And I went to Honolulu, Hawaii. I was making $8,000 a year.
Wow.
Milk out there is like $12 a gallon, so it's ridiculous. And that was my only way to get started. And I went out there and I got a credit card and I ran that sucker up, and just to survive. I was lucky enough that my boss there got a job at Pikeville College, we actually opened up with Pikeville this year. I went back with a guy named Kelly Wells, and I was there for 3 years. That's where I met my wife, Jess, who's my best friend in the world, and we got two lovely boys. But I met her there. She was coaching the women's team as an assistant. I was assistant on the men's side. And at that level, you share a lot of bus rides. It's all buses. There's no flying. So we got to know each other and got married. But from there, I ended up getting my first Division I opportunity at Coastal Carolina for Cliff Ellis, who used to be the head coach at South Alabama years ago.
Yeah. And Auburn, yeah.
And at
Auburn.
Auburn man here.
Yeah. And, he used to tell me unbelievable stories about South Alabama and the support and how great it was his time coaching there. He loves telling stories, one of the best storytellers I've ever been around. And that's where I first, learned a lot about South Alabama. From there, I went to Eastern Kentucky, where I went to school. I went back as a top assistant there for 1 year. Thought I was going to be there for a while. We bought a house, Jess and I did, and basketball takes you a lot of places, and got an opportunity to go to UAB, which is obviously in the state of Alabama, up in Birmingham. I was there for 2 years. Then I got, one of my dreams was coaching the ACC. I think it's the best basketball conference in America. And I got an opportunity to go to Clemson. And I was at Clemson for 2 years, worked for Brad Brownell. And then, Burn the Boats originated, which is, you see it all in the office. You guys walk through here. And that's kind of my mantra, something I live by. And I got an opportunity at Nicholls State. I took a $90,000 pay cut to be a head coach, leaving the ACC. And, I did that because I believed in myself, and I burned the boats. There was no option except to find a way to succeed. And Nicholls is a tough job financially and from a resource standpoint. And we were fortunate enough to win the Southland Conference, and Dr. Erdman and Dr. Waldrop brought me up here, and I interviewed, and I was fortunate that they felt like I was the right man for the job. So here we are now, and I'm excited to be in Mobile and excited about the year.
Appreciate you sharing that with us. I wanted to ask you about the Burn the Boats, and you've already brought that up, so I'm going to jump right to that. So I've researched that a little bit, and it's thought that Cortez said that. Where did you pick up that phrase, burn the boats, and talk a little bit about that and what that means to you?
It originated with Hernando Cortez when they went to battle. Felt like they could have been a little bit outmanned, whatever it was, but they weren't going to leave any option for failure. So when they got off to go to battle, they burned their boats, and which that meant they got on, battling, and things went poorly. They had no way home unless they were coming home on their boats. So, you couldn't retreat. And, I look at life like that. There is no retreating. There is no excuses. You have to find a way to be successful no matter what the hardships are or the obstacles. You have to find a way to be successful in whatever area you're in. That's not only basketball, just anything that you do. And, for me, burn the boats, it originated for me. I heard Tony Robbins. I was listening to him. He was a motivational speaker. I think everybody probably knows who that is. Was talking about it. He was talking about in business ventures and things like that. Hey, you have to burn your boat, to go all in, or if you don't, you're always going to be second guessing. You're always going to have that safety net, and you can never truly succeed. So, looking back at my life, there's 3 examples, and I like to share these of when I did burn the boats. And the first one was Hawaii. I was an only child from Kentucky, and a little bitty country town. I had never been to Hawaii. I'd hardly been out of Kentucky. My family didn't take a lot of vacations. I mean, we've been to Florida maybe once or twice. And I said, you know what? This is my only chance. I've dreamt of being a college coach, just a basketball coach in general, high school, college, anything, my whole life. And I have an opportunity here, and I'm going to take it. If I have to live poor for a year and get a credit card and just find a way to survive, I'm going to do it. So I burned the boats that time, and it was, hard. The second one, I kind of skipped over this in my quick rundown of my path a little bit, but when I left Pikeville College, I went to Arkansas Fort Smith. It's a Division II school in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and it was an awesome opportunity. And I got there, and I was working for 2 weeks, and I got a call from Cliff Ellis, and he offered me an opportunity to interview for the Coastal Carolina assistant's job. And I asked my boss there at Fort Smith if I could interview. And he said, if you interview for the job, you better get it. Yeah. Which essentially meant, if you go interview and you don't get it, you're going to be unemployed. And I thought about it for 24 hours and talked to my wife, Jess. She was my girlfriend at the time. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I packed my car up. I put in a notice on the apartment that I had. I'd only been there 2 weeks. And I turned in my letter of resignation and took off and drove 14 hours to Myrtle Beach to interview at Coastal. And there was no option for failure in the interview. I had to be my absolute best, and I knew that. And there was pressure with it. And when you burn the boats, there's pressure, but you have no option but to succeed. The third one was when I left Clemson. We were happy at Clemson. We had another kid on the way. Rock was on the way, my youngest son. We already had Reese. And I was, my wife thought it was crazy. She didn't want to go. It was in the swamps of Louisiana, and Clemson's a beautiful place. We loved it. I'd always dreamt of coaching the ACC, and I burned the boats. I said, if I'm going to be a head coach, this is my opportunity, and I did that. So we try to get our guys to buy in to burn the boats, and it's everywhere in our office, our locker room. It's on our gear. And that's in every area. I tell them, you have to burn the boats academically every day. You can't have any excuses. You didn't sleep good the night before, but you got a big test. You can't go into that test and fail it and say, well, I didn't get a good night's rest. That has nothing to do with the outcome. You have to find a way, whatever the circumstances are, to be successful. And our team really buys into that. They do, especially once they realize what it is. And that's something that I can truly say that I live by.
That's great. And look, Earl, I knew that I was going to be fired up when I came in here, and Coach Riley's already got me all fired up. And that's great. Let me ask you this. So how many years from your first coaching job until today?
This is year, I think, 14.
So we kind of talked to, our guest on the one of the previous episodes was the dean of the College of Business here at USA, and Earl asked the question about, kids today. You hear the challenges with millennials and, that kind of thing, and Gen Zers and that kind of thing. What has coaching become more of a challenge as the generation, as this next generation has moved up, or are kids just kids, and you just have to find a way to motivate them? I mean, what does that look like for you? And then how do you reach different personality types, different work ethics? I mean, how does that look on a daily basis for you, trying to lead your kids to the ultimate goal of winning, a championship?
Yeah, it certainly has. Just in my time of coaching, I can't imagine the guys that have coached for 40 to 45 years, the difference you see in kids now versus then. It's drastically different. And I think a lot of things go into that. I think the things that kids have at their disposal now, from a technology standpoint, social media empowers people so much, and it creates a lot of problems. I love social media, though. I will say that I'm addicted to Twitter, but it does cause a lot of problems. I think it's changed our generation of coaching. But, I actually had this talk with our guys yesterday because I got after them a little bit. We have the second youngest staff in all of America, and I do that on purpose. At the Division I level, we're the second youngest staff. At 36, I'm one of the youngest head coaches. And I want us to be able to relate to those guys, for us to understand what's going on in the world, for us to understand the trends that are going on, not only for recruiting, but to, help our guys here, because we need to understand them. But I also told our guys, I'm really young, but I have an old school approach to how we do things. And it's hard for them sometimes, especially when I took over this job, to understand that, because we're young and we're hip to a lot of things. And, we recruit at a really high level because of those things, because of the relationship piece. And then they get here and we coach them really hard and we hold them accountable for everything, and they struggle with that at times. And I think the relationship piece, no matter what, is the most important thing. Our guys here know that we love them. We spend an unbelievable amount of time with them. So it allows us to coach them hard. I think we're one of the hardest working teams in the country. And I get after our guys. People laugh. They ask me how we can coach them like that. It's because, they're like our kids. They know how much we care about them. They know that, we not only care about them as a basketball player, but we care about them succeeding academically, growing as a man, and we also care about their families and what they have going on. I relate. I've coached a lot of guys, a lot of first-generation graduates. That's something I'm really proud of. A lot of kids that come from a single mom. Some of our kids, it's just, we really relate to those kids, and that's a relationship thing that makes our program special, I think. Another answer to your question is you got to coach every kid different, too. I think the days of coaching every kid, a cookie cutter type approach to coaching is over. Kids come from so many diverse backgrounds. They go through so many things daily that years ago just weren't relevant. Now everything is, whether it's social media, whether it's different temptations they're exposed to that's not good for them, all those things, and you have to coach them all different. And in order to do that, you got to really get to know them. And as the head coach here, through the recruiting process, even the guys we inherited, I've taken a lot of time to get to know our kids so that when they do have issues, I know how to, attack those in the best way to help them get through it.
Well, we've probably done close to 60 interviews now. We've released 48 episodes. The theme and the word that keeps recurring over and over and over again is relationship. It's a common thread that runs throughout anything really in leadership, sports, business. So I think that's a great insight, and I think that's probably why you've been successful so far in your first year, and why you'll continue to be that way here, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. So, in talking about relationships and your relationships with the students that you coach, was there someone you kind of modeled after? I mean, this may go to other areas as well, but who to you was a mentor? Was that Cliff Ellis, Coach Ellis, or who all influenced Richie Riley to make him the coach that he is today?
I've had a lot of really good influences, to be honest. I worked for some head coaches that were almost completely different. So I got a lot of different looks at things that I wanted to try to take with me, and some things that I may not want to do. Just like my assistants, I'm sure hopefully they get some things from me that they love, but there's probably some things that I do that they don't want to do when they become a head coach. Cliff Ellis was certainly, it was a blessing to be the first Division I job to work for a future Hall of Famer. When you look at him, a lot of things I got were, how to run a program, how to run a program, how to build a program. You look what he did at South Alabama. First of all, it was incredible, and then he went to Clemson and he won the ACC there, which is almost unheard of with the Dukes and the Carolinas and everybody that's in that league. And then he went to Auburn, had Auburn number 1 in the country. And Coastal Carolina, he's done the same. And I learned how to build a program. And then you go on through some other guys I worked for. Jared Hass, who's the head coach at Stanford now. He was the head coach at UAB when I worked for him. And the relationship piece, I took a lot from him. He's one of the most caring people. Our guys just loved him, and they played so hard because they cared so much for him. And how much he put into us, just that family piece. And that's something that I've taken here is, I want our guys to, if they have kids, I want their kids around the office. My kids are around the office all the time. One of my assistants, Coach Howard, just left to watch a little presentation or show that his son Eli's doing for his preschool, and I want them to do that. And a lot of places aren't like that. They have set office hours, and their staffs aren't around their families. There's nothing more important than family, and I want our guys to live that, because I want to live that. I want to go watch my son play flag football, and I want to watch everything that they do and be part of that, because it goes so fast. A guy that I didn't work for that is a mentor of mine is Shaka Smart, that's at Texas. He's became a great friend and somebody that I lean on a lot. And he's incredible when it comes to relationships. His whole program is based on that. And that's something I've tried to do, is make it about relationships, make it about growing men. We want these guys to grow into men where they're successful when they're done playing basketball. The goal is that they all play professionally at some level if that's their dream. But, that goal's not always attainable. And so getting a degree here is mandatory. We make sure that our guys understand that and they take it very serious, and we graduate our guys, but also just learning how to have your own family one day and be a great father, and we try to set that example every day for them to see that. But some of my coaching styles, I wanted to be a head coach for a long time, and I planned and prepared, and a lot of things I've taken from some people, but a lot of things I've kind of done, and I've learned by trial and error. Some things I've loved that I've done since I've been a head coach entering year 4, and some things I've scrapped, and I think that's the only way to grow and learn.
We had Joel Erdman on a couple episodes ago, and obviously great AD here, and we asked him the question, what do you look for when you recruit coaches to South Alabama? And he said, first of all, look for character. What kind of man are you? What kind of woman are you? Which I think goes to the success that he's had since he's been here, because wins and losses don't mean anything if you're not a good person, right? So what do you look for when you recruit basketball players? I mean, what are some of the characteristics that you, these are must-haves and guys that I want to come play for me at South Alabama?
Yeah, one thing that's not negotiable is what type of person they are. One thing I tell recruits a lot, and their families, and I tell my staff this: if I couldn't trust that kid to watch my 5-year-old and my 3-year-old for a few hours without me being there, then they don't need to play here. My kids are around our program all the time. Coach Howard's kids are around. As we grow older, some of my other assistants that are married will have kids. And I don't want anybody in our program that I look around, I don't want my kids to be around, that my kids can't look at them and say, like, man, like those, my 2 boys, these guys are like, they're heroes. So if they're, acting crazy and not being responsible and doing the right things, then I don't want my kids to see that. So that's number one. And then we look for really competitive people, not only competitive on the court, but competitive in life. They just want to be successful. I'm extremely competitive, and it's hard to play for me if you're not. You have to be really, really competitive. And another thing is you need to be driven. You need to be driven to want to be great, because we put a lot of time into what we do, and we're really demanding. And if you don't love and appreciate the game of basketball, then it's really hard to play here, because you're going to get burned out, because we put an unbelievable amount of time into it, and that's our focus. The last thing that we really, really look at too, and I pay close attention to this when we recruit kids, is how do they treat people in their life. I've had kids we've recruited, and I've seen them, the way that they talk to their mother, and I'm done. We're not going to do that. If you talk to your mama that way, there's no way you're going to come here and treat people on this campus with respect. we watch that, how they treat people. We try to be as thorough as we can at vetting guys. When we recruit a kid, we go talk to the janitor at the school. We talk to their teachers. We talk to anybody that we can talk to make sure that they have the right characteristics to succeed here, because South Alabama is a special place. We have great people at this university, and the last thing I want to do is bring kids in here that our fan base and our teachers and our administration, that they don't want to be around. So we are very careful in the type of people we bring here. And I think that leads to success. I think that helps us be successful because we have the right kids in place.
No doubt. Well, let me ask you this, and you've had great success your first year, but how do you deal with diversity, and how do you teach your kids to deal with diversity? I mean, you're not going to win every game, probably. I mean, chances are. Injuries, have a couple of bad games, and the press starts chirping. I mean, all kind of distractions and adversity out there. How do you deal with that personally, and then what do you teach your kids about basketball kids about dealing with adversity?
We talk about accountability all the time, and when you deal with adversity, you have to meet it head on. You can't make excuses. You can't run away. And we talk to our guys about it all the time. You got to own it. Every single day, we force them into a lot of adversity. And, I tell some of our new guys, I tell them that in recruiting, like, there's going to be days you'll practice really well, and I'm going to get on you just to see how you handle that adversity. We put you in tough situations in conditioning, put you in tough situations in practice every day, so that in the games, when that adversity strikes, you're ready for it. An old Navy SEALs thing that I say all the time is you sink to the level of your training when things get tough. And if you're trained at an extremely high level, when things get tough, you sink to a high level. And we always meet everything head on. There is no passive aggressive within our program. When adversity strikes, we meet it, and we do our best to figure out how we're going to combat that. And that's when we're playing bad. If we're at a stretch where we're not playing very well, then we're going to spend as much time as needed to get that corrected. And we're going to try new things. One thing that drives me crazy, and I've worked for some people like this, is when things go poorly, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, because that's the way that you're used to doing it. I'm not too proud to admit that whatever we're doing, if it's not working, is wrong for this team. Maybe it's right for a different team, but we'll change things up and do our best to meet it head on and attack it.
Good stuff, Earl.
I'm sitting here just taking this all in.
You're sitting here enjoying the conversation, and you're
I am. I'm just getting wrapped up. And I think I'm about ready to go run some laps, actually. So obviously, the folks that you've talked about, the mentors, had a great influence on you. One of the things we like to find out when we talk about leadership is what do you read? I mean, there's some books on your desk here. I see a lot of them are about basketball, but do you have something you like to read, or is there a book that you've read that's made a great influence on you? Or
This is funny. A lot of coaches read a ton. I don't read as much as most people. I do have some books. I got a blue ribbon over here, which is a college basketball yearbook. So I've read it a lot about a lot of teams in the country, and it's got a lot of good thoughts in it. But I'm almost through the complete Bible.
Is that right?
2 years ago, I made a commitment that I was going to read front to back the entire Bible, and I'm close to the end. So I'm proud of that. I'm really excited about that. And, I read a lot of articles more than I read complete books. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge book guy. I love reading articles on leadership, especially when it's coaches that I really respect. I'm a big football fan too, so I love reading about different leadership styles, especially in football. I was fortunate enough to be at Clemson for 2 years, and Dabo Sweeney is there, and he was around our program a lot, because people don't know this. His favorite sport's basketball. Yeah, it is. He loves hoops. He used to tell me it was his dream to play at UAB when he was growing up, because he grew up at Pelham, right outside of Birmingham there, and he wanted to play basketball at UAB.
Wow.
And but he obviously went to Alabama and played football. But his leadership style, anything I can get my hands on where he's talking about his leadership style, I love it. Nick
what
Saban
have you picked up from him? What have you picked up from
the biggest thing I picked up from him is that family. It's unbelievable how tight-knit their group is. People talk about culture all the time. They have 5 stars, and they have They have an unbelievably talented team, but their culture plays such a huge role, and you would never know that unless you were around there. I used to go to practices all the time and see how he relates to his guys and how close their team was and how close their staff was. I mean, he's one of the few programs in America where his staff has stayed together. Yeah. I mean, Brent Venables, Tony Elliott, Jeff Scott, all his coordinators, most of his position guys have stayed, and they've had opportunities. And it's just such a special culture of togetherness. Their thing is all in, and they're truly all in. And that's something that I really took, that and how he supported us as a basketball program. He didn't have to do that. He's the biggest man on campus. They love him, and he was at almost every game, showed genuine interest in what we were doing. And I took a lot from that. Another guy, I read articles all the time, and anything I can get my hands on about Nick Saban. And they're polar opposites in a lot of ways. But I love Nick Saban's approach to winning and consistency every day. All day tough is something that he says all the time, and I use that a lot too. Being all day tough in every walk of your life. And he's just a picture of consistency with what they do at Alabama. And that's what, I want my program to be about, is consistent effort, consistency every single day. And you see them on Saturday. They show up every Saturday, and they're the same. And they're like that every year. I tell my team that all the time. What's the difference in them and your other upper echelon football programs is the fact that they are prepared and they give you the same every week. You see a lot of teams get up, like last week you saw 2 top 10 teams get upset, and they got 5 stars and 4 stars. And and so does Bama, and so does Clemson, and so does LSU. But what separates Bama is just their consistency within their program. And that's something we strive to be.
Yeah, continuous improvement. In our firm, that's a key concept as well. It comes out of Lean Six Sigma. So what are you doing here at South Alabama to have continuous improvement and have the consistency that you refer to?
Well, we have a culture of work, and we pride ourselves on being the hardest working team in the country. We pride ourselves on being the best at attention to detail. I joke around all the time when we recruit kids. I say, at Kentucky, John Calipari, and at Duke, Mike Krzyzewski, and they have one and dones, and they're Hall of Famers. And I tell kids, I say, you come here and you're not going to go anywhere in the country where it's more about attention to detail to your own individual game. And I really believe that. I think we do the best job of honing in on every kid that we have in our program and improving their individual game, but also their mental capacity. And I think that's the most important thing that we do. If you do a good job recruiting, I think we do. We have talent in our program. I think that's why we have the expectations we have going into the season. But we hone in on the individual skills of your game, and we improve the things that you need improvement in. And we, the things that you're already good at, we try to make that elite. But we also hone in on all the things that you're missing from a mental standpoint. Different kids are have, just like I talked about coaching guys, different. Some guys struggle when they get tired. They completely shut down. Some guys struggle with adversity when they're not making shots. And we really hone in on helping them overcome whatever it is mentally that holds them back. And I think that's the key to growth is, each person, anywhere, they have something, a mental trigger when things, whatever that trigger is, when it happens, then their game regresses or their production regresses. So we try to find that, and we try to help them get through that. And some of it is putting them in that situation where that adversity hits that. All right, then how are we going to fix that? So this doesn't continue to happen. It can't continue to happen. If you want to be the absolute best basketball player you can be, then you have to beat this. And we've had a lot of success with that. And that's why transfers in our program are great, because they sit out one season and we get to really hone in on them individually. And then when they step out to play that following year, they're a different player.
Yeah. Earl, we're talking basketball, but I submit to you that everything Coach has talked about can be applied to, I don't care what you're doing. If you listen to this podcast, if you're listening to what he's saying, you can apply what he's saying to what you do.
I would agree with that.
Absolutely, 100%. Coach, I know that Earl would like to sit here and talk to you for another hour. You don't have the time. I know you're busy. Thank you for joining us. I do have one final question. You go back and tell 18-year-old Coach Riley one thing that you wish you had known when you graduated from high school, about to make that leap of faith and, go to college and then move to Hawaii and everything that you've done? What's one piece of advice that you would give your 18-year-old self?
I would tell him not to change a thing. First of all, I wouldn't trade my journey for anything. And there's been a lot of tough times, living without very much money, and just a lot of adversity, as we talk about. But it's made me the man that I am today. And 18-year-old me was very immature and had a lot to learn. The one thing I would tell him is you don't know nearly as much as what you think you know. I thought I was like John Wooden when I was 18 years old, and I really didn't know much about anything. So I would tell him to open up his ears a little bit more and learn more at an early age, because at that age I really thought that I was going to set the world on fire by 19. I thought I knew everything, and that's what I would say to young kids is take advantage of the people around you. When you're that young, you think that you know everything, and I certainly did. And I didn't always take advantage of the guys that were around me that I could have learned a lot more from. And I would tell myself that. But I wouldn't trade anything that I've been through, and all the things that have been put in my path that has been a blessing, and I'm thankful for all of them.
Can't think of a better way to end it, Earl.
No, I can't either. Coach, we really appreciate your time today and appreciate what you've shared with us. It's been very insightful.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Coach. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. As always, a big thanks to producer Carrie Wolf and editor Johnny Gwynn. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.